Hello, this is Marjory Wildcraft back with you again, and we're continuing in the garden. And if you remember in the last segment, we talked about fencing off an area, removing all the weeds, staking out your beds, defining where your beds are, using a fork to loosen up the soil. We only went 1 fork depth, and ideally you want to go 2 fork depths, but if you remember, we're in a little bit of a hurry. We're racing winter here, so we only loosened it up 1 fork depth. Then we added about 4 to 6 inches of compost on top, gently fork that in, just rake the bed smooth, and now we've got our beds made. One thing, after you've made your bed, you never want to step in them again. You never want to step in it. It's going to compress that soil and it'll undo the work you did of forking and loosening the soil. So I'm using a board here. It's called a kneeling board to help distribute my weight so that I can get into the bed and work on it and not really compress the soil that much. I also added some haze to the paths just to remind myself always to be walking on the paths. Now what we're going to be doing today is actually transplanting some plants in. What I've got here, and this is a variety of different kales, Brussels, broccoli, and cabbages. They're all in the brassicas family. And according to the biointensive method, we want to plant them on 18-inch centers. Now in a future segment, we'll go into why we're planting on hexagonal patterns and where these 18-inch centers come from. For now, we'll just call it that. And we'll talk a little bit about transplanting. I use a visual aid sometimes, and this is also a lot of fun if you have kids. These are 18-inch sides, and if you can see in the video here, these are all planted. We've got a row of 3 and a row of 2 and an array of 3 and a row of 2. I just mark out my spot where I'm going to dig, and you know, the great thing about life is it's kind of messy and you can be a little sloppy. It doesn't exactly have to be accurate. Now I've got my little plants here, and a couple of things about little plants when you're transplanting. First of all, plants do not like to be touched on their stems. They're much happier being touched on their leaves, and they don't like to be pulled up by their stems. So when you remove the plant from the package, if you can just cover the soil with your fingers and gently pull the plant out, that's the way to do it, where you're not actually doing with its stem. Now this leaf is a little bit of yellow, and it's not going to do this plant much service. Plants do like you to remove dead leaves from them, so I'm just going to pinch that off real quickly. And then we've got a little guy who's ready to go. Now when I plant it, I dig a little hole, and I'm only going to plant it at about the soil depth that it came in as a potted plant. And I'm going to gently, not too hard, but gently tamp the soil around it so that we're sure that all the roots around there have good contact with soil. I'm going to do this again for our other little friend. Again, this one's got a pretty good set of leaves. I don't really need to take it off. Put them in gently and tap them in. Now the very next thing after I get done planting a group of these is I'm going to water them in well. We're going to get into the onion patch next, and those will be planted on a 4-inch center. In this part of the bed, I'm going to be planting some onions, and onions need to be planted on about 4-inch centers. I've gotten one started in my row here, and I mark my row out. Again, I'm going to use this triangle. You don't have to. You can eyeball it, but it helps, and especially if you got kids, they seem to love these type of aids. But again, I'm just looking. Basically, you're going to just be going in between where your previous plants were planted. Now, another thing that can be kind of a challenge, if you remember I said we're planting late in the season, we went to the nursery and these are pretty much the last plants they had. And as you can see, they're heavily root bound. And these are a group of onions together. Now, when you get a situation like this, which you'll probably have at some point in time, you don't want to rip these guys apart. You want to be as gentle as you can with their roots. And if you'll see, I'm just kind of going to gently try and pull some of the dirt out and loosen them up. And then tug just lightly. If it doesn't come, do a little more gentle massaging. Kind of tug lightly. It can take you know, a little bit of time. These guys are really root bound together, but you're trying to keep as much of the root mass intact as possible. Once you get the first couple out, the other ones usually happen a lot easier. So there are tools to do this. I'm just gonna put them in there. I want to get as much of that root down in there as possible. But again, I'm only planting it at the level where its soil was, a little bit of tamping down to make it nice and firm. And then working another one apart, planting. I'll go do another row or two, and what we'll do is we'll run this in high speed for you so you can see how it goes without having to go through the whole slowness. The great thing about soil is you can just create whatever you want in there. Marking my holes. And of course, immediately after transplanting, I'm going to be watering my onions in, and I guess I'm trying to do this again with as gentle a simulation of a gentle rain as possible. But you always want to water in right after you've transplanted to help reduce the stress on those little plants. Their roots have dried out a little bit from being out in the sun and the air, and you just want to make it as easy a transition for them as possible. Well, we have a lot more segments coming up for you, and until I see you on the next one, this is Marjory Wildcraft.